Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 53. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday. Dave, wish we were talking about a victory Monday. At one point, it felt like we would be after the Pittsburgh's 27-point fourth quarter comeback just falls short in an ultimate 41-37 loss to the LA Chargers on Sunday night. Pittsburgh dropping to 5-4-1 on the season. Really, and it's par for the course, Dave. We say this every single week, a wild, wacky game for Pittsburgh.
Absolutely, and 28 points in the fourth quarter, and I think you even had to correct the Steelers PR department on that. The last time they did that was against the Jets in what year was it?
86, yeah, 27 last night for Pittsburgh in the fourth quarter, and 86 they had 28, and that was only the second time, only the third time in team history they've scored 27 or more in the fourth quarter. The first time they've done that in a loss in team history.
Yeah, that's what I mean. 27, but the last time that it happened was 28 against the Jets, right?
Right.
Wow. And it almost made for one of those all-time great comebacks. And we don't see very many of those, especially when it comes to the Steelers, especially that point differential. They were 17 points down at one point, I think, in the second half there. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? And ended up overcoming that. But you know what they call almost comebacks, right?
Losses we talk about today. That's what they call almost comebacks.
Right, and I guess that's our job to do that. It'd really be a lot different. I think attitude. A loss is a loss. I mean, it doesn't matter how it happened. Yeah, they showed resilience. There's a lot of positive, I think, to talk about with this team. Fourth quarter specifically, but. We got to start and talk about it first and foremost being a loss, and with the other three teams in the AFC North winning, well, I mean that puts you a game behind all three the way you started the week there. So, look, this team's got two games now against the Bengals and then the Ravens. Those certainly do look like must-win games now.
Yeah, they do. The next two slated games in Week 17, Week 18 versus the Browns and Ravens, probably season-defining games. Those four may matter more than the rest. And you're right, it was a tough, close, competitive game. You have to appreciate Pittsburgh's fight. I didn't think they were going to get back into that game, and they did. So credit to them, credit to the defense for making some plays in the fourth quarter. But as you get closer to Thanksgiving in December and that back portion of the season, moral victories really mean less and less. Actual victories become the only thing that matters because that margin for error gets smaller and smaller. And in an extremely competitive AFC, in a game now where the Chargers are going to have that leg up on you for maybe potential wild card implications, we'll have to wait and see. Again, you have to appreciate the fight. You knew the difficult circumstances Pittsburgh was entering last night, but again, the moral victory feels less and less, noteworthy as you get later into the season.
Yep, they let them off the hook. I don't know who let who off the hook, but both teams, I think. But all right, where would you like to start with this?
Yeah, we have a lot of housekeeping. I'll try to kind of speed through it as much as possible, but let's start here with everything that happened Saturday. Of course, as you guys know, Ben started last night's game. He was activated off the reserve COVID list on Saturday at 4 p.m., was officially cleared on Sunday. He spoke with reporters after the game, kind of talked about the past week for him and how he was really sick 2 Saturdays ago before the Lions game and then felt better and got its first negative test on Friday, got second negative test, I assume, on Saturday, and traveled separately to LA to play and start last night without practicing one iota during the week, obviously.
Yeah, they all just let him sit at home during the week now, moving forward for a guy that coming off of being, sick with COVID and all like that, and not practicing. it sure didn't seem to miss a beat. It's just one of those other things that you stick in the Ben Roethlisberger folder there of, boy, I can't believe he did that kind of performances there. Look, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but, conducting a comeback the way that he did, and, there were a couple interceptable balls once again, but they weren't intercepted. They ended up being incomplete, and that's all that matters there. Couple touchdown passes, obviously in the game, and kept this team without it, and never seemed to be rattled whatsoever until obviously that last drive when sacked a couple times, and just the line came unraveled completely. At that point, the Chargers knew that they should probably pressure heavy in those situations, and they did, and they got to them. But overall, I mean, once again, a couple throws I know he would like to have back, especially that early deep one to Claypool that probably should have been a touchdown, but was underthrown, and then the Steelers ended up not cashing that into a touchdown. They settled for a field goal there, and that I guess technically could be defined as one of the bigger differences in the game.
Did they get a field goal in that drive? Wasn't that the fourth the failed fourth down conversion
or
there?
Was it the fourth down? Was it the fourth down conversion?
Yeah, that was the failed. They didn't get any points on that drive.
Okay, so yeah, that was indeed your difference really in the game there. I had the drive confused. I thought that they only got a field goal in that one, but should have been 7 the way Claypool had his man beat kind of out of the slot, I think, or out of the bunch formation, if you will, there. And you get a guy that wide open like that, and not too far down the field, you're obviously glad. We went into this thing saying, man, this team's got to get some explosive plays, and Claypool, got to see Claypool step up and deliver some big plays. Well, they did, but, you're fine, I guess, with that if they get some points out of the drive. But the fact that they didn't makes you want to circle that even more and say, man, that should have been a touchdown.
Yeah, it should have been just a bad underthrow by Ben. I thought Ben overall was very good in this game. It'd be his best performance of the season, but that was probably the most negative play he had all night. And the two, we'll call it quote-unquote COVID games that Ben has had the last 2 years, 2020 against the Bengals, in which he was close contact, did not practice all week, and last night versus the Chargers, in which he did not practice all week. In those two games combined, he's thrown for over 600 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and the Steelers offense has scored 36 and 37 points in those games. So Ben should just never practice again because it seems to be the best outcome for him in this offense.
Yeah, you're right. That was early in the second quarter there, and boy, both teams just moved up and down the field on each other in the first half there. I think even though there was a kickoff in there at the end to close out the first half, each team had the football 3 times in total. It was a really, really fast moving first half, and it looked like, once again, it looked like neither defense could stop the opposing offense overall, even though I guess the Chargers offense seemed to click a little bit better, but the Steelers still managed to move the football, but coming out of that one drive with the 0 points when they were right down, fourth and goal type situation there, was really disappointing.
It was, for sure. Yeah, the Chargers, at one point, their 5th possession of the game came early in the fourth quarter. So, they were long possessions. They were scoring possessions. We'll talk about that a bit later in the show. On Saturday, more additional moves were made from an injury standpoint. Kevin Dodson was placed on IR with a high ankle sprain, so he'll now miss at least the next 2 games after missing last night. Also ruled out in that game were TJ Watt and Joe Hayden. Mika Fitzpatrick remains on the COVID list. He, of course, did not play last night. So those were the main injuries. But prior to the game, Chase Claypool returned in this one. Trey Turner returned in this game. And so with the COVID and the injuries, there were multiple other players brought up who played on Sunday night. Those guys included Carl Joseph, now wearing his new number 8. Daniel Archibong making, I believe, his NFL debut, and the same for Delonte Scott. Archibong, a defensive lineman, and Scott, an outside linebacker. I say those terms to help people find out who the heck those guys are, because I'm sure there were many Steelers fans wondering who's 61 and who's number 50 watching that game last night.
Boy, it was weird seeing a number 50 run around out there, wasn't it?
It was really weird. It had a very preseason game feel when Daniel Archibong and Delonte Scott are trying to tackle Justin Herbert.
Absolutely. And let's see here. Archibong, I think, played 8 defensive snaps in total, and Scott played 7 defensive snaps in total in that game.
Probably 8 and 7 snaps more than I expected or would have liked. But whenever you have that many injuries, obviously you really have no choice. And by the way, Isaiah Loudermilk did not play in this game. He was out with a groin injury. So, I mean, again, depth across the board, extremely, tested this season.
And I think I nailed the 6 pregame inactives this week here. And unfortunately, and as we kind of warned people might be the case, one Anthony McFarland Jr. was included in those 6 inactives.
Yeah, just can't get ahead over Ballage at this point, and I don't see that changing going forward. I mean, we'll see what happens, but disappointing for him. Can't get on that moving train, had the MCL tear, had the surgery, misses, 6+ weeks, and, at this point in the season, you just kind of forget about him. You just kind of assume that him being as inactive will be a status quo kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, we've talked about this a few times now. It's just disappointing that he can't, get a helmet at this point.
Yeah, but obviously he's not doing enough to turn it. I mean, I understand why Snell plays over him. I don't quite still understand why Ballage plays over him. I guess because Ballage is just a little more versatile, the better, blocker, I suppose, the better receiver, more of a quote-unquote third down type of guy, but I'm not, 100% sure.
Right. I mean, and barring injuries happening, it doesn't look like he's close to even getting a helmet at this point. Let's say you have a full injury list that just forces him into the into a helmet.
Right. Should note some other active inactives and some other notable things there. Ahkello Witherspoon active and playing last night. Zach Banner had at least his first offensive snap since he's torn ACL against the Giants in the Week 1 opener of 2020. That came on Najee Harris's 1-yard touchdown run. So kudos to Zach Banner. From an injury standpoint, in-game, and the Steelers lost to the Chargers last night. J.C. Hassenauer did not finish. Left early in that game with a pec injury. That was a pretty quick injury and pretty quick rule-out. So that's always a concern when you're hearing pec there about something that was causing him to be ruled out almost immediately. Tight end Eric Ebron evidently suffered a knee injury, according to Mike Tomlin. Arthur Millette had a neck injury. He returned. Chris Wormley had a minor injury late in the first half. He returned in the second half. So it's Hassenauer and Ebron, the names to watch this week from an injury standpoint.
Yeah, and I don't think there's media portions today, being the teams returning from the West Coast, and also Tuesday will be the Mike Tomlin press conference, and that'll be the next that we hear about that, unless. I'm guessing we don't hear anything out of like an Ian Rappaport or Tom Paracello or Adam Schefter here before Tomlin speaks. Then maybe it's good news. But you definitely don't like to hear that peck with Hassenauer and going out of that game so quick. And even if it's not a torn pec or something, it might be something that cost him at least a game or so. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed, and really no reason to speculate on it because we go one way and it ends up the other way 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Joe Haig replaced Hassenauer last night at left guard, and so he may still be the guy if Hassenauer cannot play against the Bengals this weekend because Kevin Dotson still remains on IR. BJ Finney, I'm not sure, how he's factoring in, but obviously not much of a factor in terms of being a backup plan for Pittsburgh right now.
Right, he dressed, so I guess more than anything, if Hassenauer misses a game, then Finney becomes your backup center, right? At that point, mm-hmm. So it would indeed be Haig at left guard there.
Yeah, and Haig had a tough time late in that game against Joey Bosa, as you would expect. So, all right, Dave, let's get into this game here again. Pittsburgh losing 41-37 to drop to 5-4-1 on the season. At one point in this game, late third quarter, they were down, 27-10. They storm back. They take the lead 37-34 with about 3.5 minutes to go. But Mike Williams gets wide open on a busted coverage for a 53-yard touchdown for the game-winning score. Let's start with the Steelers' defense in this contest, Dave. And, I mean, it's just, they didn't have the guys, obviously. I mean, whenever Tomlin doesn't like to make excuses, obviously, but whenever you're missing so many pieces, so many key pieces for a defense that's relying on its stars more than ever this season, trying to, combat Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert, with, again, Archibong and Scott and Witherspoon, et cetera, all these guys that are pressed on the big time roles. I mean, it really kind of puts you in a bind in terms of what you can call, what you're able to call, what you're comfortable calling, which is basically nothing because you're just in a really tough spot there being so outmatched from a talent gap standpoint.
Yeah, look, you just keep trying to throw different types of mud at it, right? And see if any of it sticks, and that kind of got the feel for it. I think, and I wrote about this in my 5 keys, I think the understanding was with the 4 outside linebackers that they had to dress for this game that they were probably going to have to do something to kind of manipulate some sort of pressure. And I think the blitz rate, as kind of we predicted, would be up. It was up, but even kind of early in this game with them trying to send numbers, it didn't feel like they were getting pressure much of any, especially in the first, 2.5 quarters overall. Now, there was, I think, a Highsmith sack in there, but I call that more of a coverage sack. I think down towards the Steelers' end of the field on that one there. But it was kind of a pick your poison kind of thing in this, right? If you rush 4, then you give him time to let guys run away from guys in your secondary. If you send numbers, if he realizes it quick enough, he gets the ball out quick and beats you that way. And really, the other way is if you don't have 100% rush lane integrity. You have the other thing that I kind of warned about people after watching some of that tape was, look, and I put this on Twitter before the game, Justin Herbert's not going to be confused with one Josh Allen, but he's not afraid to take off with the football. And, boy, I didn't know how prophetic that would end up being. And no shape or form did I expect Josh Allen to take off, what was it, 9 times for like 90 yards or something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he killed them with his legs, and a lot of that times was just losing that contain on the edge, several times that way, and that came back to haunt the Steelers there. So, people say, well, why don't you just put a spy on him? Well, you have all your guys in coverage, right? Most of the time. I don't think there were many times there where you could, quote unquote, have a spy on him unless you decided not to rush, more than 4.
Yeah, they were in man coverage a ton in this game on third down. I think that was one issue, a couple different issues of why Herbert had so much success, because all of his yards came off of scrambling. There were no design runs in this game. Yeah, 90 yards in this one, the most by a quarterback against Pittsburgh since the infamous Terrell Pryor game back in 2013. And so it's very rare for a quarterback. Lamar Jackson has never rushed for 90 yards on the Steelers before. And so for Herbert to do it again, all scrambling, a couple of 18-yard runs, a couple of 36-yard run, obviously, on third down. And so it was the fact that there were the scrambles, but on third down. 3 of those, I think, came on third down, all first downs. Those were backbreakers. So, yeah, the issue was you either rush 4 and Herbert's going to break contain, or you bring pressure and the receivers are going to win their one-on-one matchups against a depleted Steelers secondary. So it was kind of pick your poison kind of deal, trying to rush 4 or bring pressure and rush 5 or 6. And so Pittsburgh was in that bind all night long. They did not contain it well. They did not do a good job on third down. And that was, I think, a major reason why the Chargers just seemed to be able to run at will and have so much success against Pittsburgh last night.
And then, look, if you have everybody kind of have 100% integrity and rush lane integrity, do you ever get any pressure at all?
Yeah, you never do with the group they had. Yeah.
With the group you have, yeah. That needs to be underlined there because Cam Hayward's going to win occasionally, but they had the resources at that point to kind of make sure they had a couple of he got the most attention on there. I thought it was a good adjustment of theirs to switch Highsmith over to the left side there, and I thought once Highsmith did get over there on the left side, He had some of his best pass rushes, especially say in the second half of the game there. But it just up until really the second half, midway I think into the third quarter there, it never felt like they were getting any pressure. And even when they were sending the numbers there, Herbert for the most part was doing a good job of getting that football out. Boy, that throw down the middle of the field that he had, I think, against one of those pressures to. Who was it? Keenan Allen that just outstretched. Cam Sutton had the underneath coverage on that. I mean, they beat the Steelers at, the Steelers just trying to throw the mud at the wall, in those situations. So, I know I saw a lot of people complaining about Keith Butler and his game plan and all like that, and really, I never felt that way, especially the way it was against the Lions, and really the couple of games previously the Steelers have had the struggles in. It was just you're having to do the best with what you got, and you're just not very effective at any of it. And you have a good young quarterback on the other side, some very talented eligibles along with it. I mean That's how they were able to beat the Steelers defense. It would have been a lot different story, I think, if you have Hayden, if you have Minka, and obviously if you have T.J. Watt on the field there, because I don't think you have to blitz as much. I don't think you have to worry about as much or I think you have people stay in their rush lanes and have more integrity that way. Yeah, I think Herbert still takes off with the football a few times in that, but maybe we're talking about 45 yards scrambling and not 90.
Yeah, I mean, I think Keith Butler, this defense, was in an incredibly tough spot last night. But again, when you play man coverage in those situations, the risk is eyes are not on the football. So if Herbert crosses the line of scrimmage, as he so often did, everyone's late to react. And so your defensive line, your rush really has to be buttoned up and contain Herbert. And when you're rushing four, that can be tough to do. And when you're rushing four with the four they rushed last night, it's even more difficult to do. So I thought maybe more zone coverage should have been required on third down last night to get eyes on Herbert whenever he was moving the pocket.
So that that's the only thing that you'd probably do different is more zone potentially on third.
Yeah, watching it live, that was kind of the only gripe I had from a schematic standpoint. But again, I mean, when you're rushing Archibong and Scott and all the guys you were playing last night in the secondary, et cetera, I mean, you just feel really limited and probably at times helpless because there are no good calls when the talent gap is so wide.
And I think one time even Delonte Scott was responsible when he was on the left side of rushing it too far inside and just easily giving up that edge, and Herbert took it.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Herbert in the pass game. I mean, obviously, Herbert ran for 90 yards, but Eckler had success on the ground. The Chargers ran for $159 and 2 touchdowns in this game. And so the Chargers scored points on their first 5 possessions. I believe it was 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals since 2001, as far back as Pro Football Reference's numbers go. The Steelers have never allowed scores on their first 5 drives.
Wow.
Defense's first 5 drives. And so, I mean, this is just record scoring, get put in a big hole early. Pittsburgh got stops late. I mean, well, mostly got stops late. There was one time where they clearly did not get a stop. We'll talk about here in a moment. But, I mean, again, you dig yourself in a major hole there just trying to figure out how to get a stop, and you got some of those late, but they did not get those early.
Yeah, it turned into, boy, can we try to outscore them type situation. Now later on in the game there, where it came crunch time and they kind of knew that the Chargers were going to have to pass, it was a little bit different story there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh made plays, and it was really Cam Hayward putting the team on his back. I mean, you get the tip pass there, and Cam Sutton has a great interception to dive and take that football away. Of course, you get the block punt in this game, which for my purposes is a defensive play, so that was huge.
That's a turnover, yeah.
Yeah, it's a turnover. And that's a monster play. Obviously, kind of helped turn the tide. It would have been a turning point for sure had Pittsburgh ultimately won. So, I mean, they tried to make plays, and they tightened up a bit, but then, of course, when you needed that one last stop there, you blow a coverage, you allow Mike Williams free on the left sideline, and that's all she wrote.
Right. Boy, props to, a couple of the stars of the game. Cam Hayward obviously wasn't perfect in this one, but a couple of big plays in that, and tracked down He even tracked down Herbert way down the field. And that was a weird sequence once he was on the ground. We obviously listened to Cam Hayward's press conference after the game and his explanation and all like that. I'm not even sure he really knows what happened. At one point, yeah, I think maybe his arm was trapped underneath there. But watching that thing a few times there after he got his arm out, I don't know what happened after that. And it was definitely, I think, understandable that he got the flag called on him, right?
Yeah, and he's probably getting a fine coming this weekend, this week as well, because regardless of intent, it did not look good. The optics did not look good, and so that mars, unfortunately, one of the best effort plays I've ever seen in football history. I mean, it's sad that
chariots of fire running down the field because there are a couple of players just flat ran into each other down face first on the field, and then it's like here comes big man Cam Hayward to save the day there. I'll never not probably etch that visual out of my mind for several weeks now here, and it was a good effort on his part. Unfortunately, you're having to chase it's a negative that you're having to chase down there, but that it shows up on tape, and that's a leadership type thing, and other players see that, and I guess the positive is it sets a good tone that's your captain, and he's given that kind of effort, especially in that situation as far down as I think the Steelers were at that time too.
Yeah, something he was only 27-20, I want to say at that point, but still, obviously a very crucial start. It was all for naught. The Chargers scored the very next play because Pittsburgh was absolutely
went right after him.
Yeah, Hayward was on the field, got double teamed, and they scored again. But you appreciate the effort. Since 2019, or I should say, the first 300 plus pound player, say that 3 times fast, to have a tackle 35 plus yards downfield since Carlos Watkins in 2019.
What? How the heck you find that one?
That's the one. That was like 3 a.m. last night, taking a lot of time. So yeah, Watkins had a tackle on Mark Andrews. There's a link in the stats of the weird of that play, 51 yards downfield. But yeah. You don't see 300-pounders make those plays very often, and so Hayward making that play was impressive. And despite the losing effort, and even though Pittsburgh scored it, they're allowed a touchdown the very next play.
Nerd.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, that one took a lot of research, a lot of manual thumbing through play by play.
Oh, come on! All right.
Anyway,
that's unique for sure. That is a stat of the weird.
Yeah. Let's talk about the touchdown from Mike Williams there, 53 yards to put the Chargers ahead for good. I want to go back and see this one. That's why I was going to write about it this morning for a film room, but I want to try to go back and watch some more tape on that before I make a final conclusion. My inclination is to put that on Trey Norwood. It looked like cover 2. It looked like Norwood obviously has deep half in that moment. He bit underneath. Cam Sutton has the flat there. And Williams just got wide open. And the fact that Cam Sutton in the post-game presser did not take responsibility for it, he just said, I won't talk about the play. If that was his fault, he probably says that's my fault. And generally speaking, who's more likely to make a mistake there? Cam Sutton, a veteran, smart guy, or Trey Norwood, a rookie? I'm leaning Norwood pretty heavily here.
Well, they had the slot blitz off the edge on that side over there, and it does look like Cam Sutton tries to dive down to kind of, I don't know, trap or cut, undercut maybe something that on that easy out there that I think they had hit a couple of times in the game there. And I have not looked at the all 22 of that particular play yet, but I've looked at the TV copy several times on that. It feels like Norwood just sitting there bought a ticket to the show. He's got to rotate down on that if with the corner coming off the edge like that, and then essentially Cam Sutton diving down into that. So he's got to make sure that he rotates down to his side over the top of that, and at worst that's a completed pass for, let's say, 15 yards. There, but he didn't. He stayed pretty much kind of where his feet were planted. Almost when the football was snapped, it's kind of a deep cover 2 safety there. And by the time he reacted and the angle he took and the player he was doing it against, that ended up being a home run.
Yeah, not only did he not get width there, he had taken a step forward on that, whatever was coming shallow on that play. And that should not be his responsibility. At least I don't believe it is. Again, I want to go back and check and compare that to some of the other nickel blitzes they were running in that game to try to get a feel for what it was supposed to look like when it was called correctly. But obviously, miscommunication, busted coverage there. You're missing some of your key guys there. So it looked like overall communication wasn't a huge issue last night, but it certainly was on that play in the game's biggest moment.
And there's one other play in this game, I think it was in the second half, where you noticeably see, and I don't think there was a corner blitz involved or a nickel blitz involved in it, but where you see Cam Sutton, I think, try to aggressively go down to kind of trap that, if you want, cut it off there. So I think they got the feel that the Steelers were going to be aggressive in those situations there. Justin Herbert talked about it after the game, how they kind of saw that happening and how he told Mike Williams to be ready. So they evidently picked something out. And the thing is until we watch the All-22, the TV copy all the time, you don't get to see some of the back end of how the safeties perform there. But it shouldn't be hard to pick out about 5 plays in this thing that I have at least circled to check to see what Herbert saw. But Mike Williams even said as much too, that they kind of picked up on something, and then Herbert told him to be ready. And just you don't want to put 100% blame on somebody, but my feel of it as well too was that Norwood has got to once again kind of rotate more out to his outside to become the over the top defender on Mike Williams there.
Right. If he's the path, there is anything vertical, anything over the top, anything, downfield, and he was not there for that, and not only to give up the catch, but to not even make the tackle there. Not have those blades of grass to defend, because it's a field goal game. So maybe you only hold the Chargers to 3 there. You go to OT and you see what that happens, or they get a late drive there in the fourth quarter and Pittsburgh puts up points. But obviously a crucial error there, regardless of who was on in a critical moment of the game.
Yeah, not only an explosive play, but a double explosive play, right? And then not only a double explosive play, but a home run at that ends up in the end zone. So I mean, there was a lot of layers to it.
There was. So overall, tough night for this defense. Again, just super depleted. Not a lot of answers here. Not a lot of guys playing well. Devin Bush did not play well. The front struggled for sure. You're trying to get guys to step up here with the injuries to this D-line, to this front seven, and you just couldn't find that. I mean, Highsmith played a decent game overall, a sack and a half in this one, a couple of run stops, but just not enough big plays and just giving up too many big plays. And have to get, again, the lack of quarterback contain, which has been an issue at times this entire season, especially in this game here, a big reason for the loss. I
mean, the Steelers did not turn the football over in this game. Or wait a minute, what was the turnovers here? No, they did not turn the football over in this game. The Chargers essentially turned the football over twice, right? I mean, the interception, the tip ball by Hayward that was intercepted by Sutton was one, and technically that officially counts for one. And then the block punt. Now, I guess you could say. See, this is some of these get into some of these into these advanced stats here. Getting stopped on 4th and goal, that's or 4th and anything, that's got to count as a turnover, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a turnover on downs, as the name implies there.
Right. So, I don't think there's any way that you don't count that as a turnover there. So if you do count that, and if you do count the block punt as one, then, and I don't know how you feel about the final 4th down, 4th and San Diego, basically in that situation there. I mean, that's an end of game type play, and also let's not count that. So would you agree that the turnover battle was the Steelers winning it 2-1?
Yes, I think that's fair.
Okay, and the explosive play battle, technically on paper, I think was 4-4. So +1 wasn't enough for the Steelers there.
Nope, it wasn't.
Needed one more. Needed one more or one less to get to that +2, and they couldn't do it.
Yep. Any other final thoughts here from this defensive performance, Dave?
Just what were your thoughts on Devin Bush?
Watching it live, not good. Not getting off of blocks. The big thing, I mean, I understand Eckler's tough to handle in coverage, but Bush was drafted to make some plays in coverage, and so he certainly could have been on my losers list. I didn't put him on there. I thought I didn't know if I had a good enough feel there watching it live, but I mean, I don't think he was good last night. But most of these guys defensively overall were not good or good enough last night.
What, you afraid Devin Bush Sr. going to come after you, or what?
I didn't know the calls, so I couldn't put him on there unless I knew what the exact calls were every single play.
I didn't think Devin Bush played well at all, and we'll have to obviously see what PFF had. I don't think their grades are out just yet, but I will tell you what they wrote in their recap last night. A lot of people will only use Pro Football Focus as long as it supports their narrative. If it doesn't, then PFF sucks, right? So, but as we have said all along, we think PFF, for what they do a great job. We disagree with a lot of some of the grades that they have as well too. So for whatever you want to take this as, this is what PFF wrote after the game, immediately before the final grades were released on Devin Bush. It says Devin Bush had a performance to forget. He was given a negative grade on over 40% of his plays against the run and gave up 6 receptions in coverage for 67 yards and 1 touchdown. If this grade holds, it will be the lowest graded performance of his career.
I mean, yeah, again, I know Eckler's tough to stop on those option routes, those backfield routes. I mean, you're kind of just playing a losing battle there. But Bush was drafted to be able to combat and be the answer to some of those guys, like the pass-catching Ecklers of the world. And he did not do a good job there, and his run defense did not look any better.
And once again, as you mentioned, option routes is not new. Option routes, Hines Ward made a living off the option route, right? But those are slanted very, very heavily, obviously, to the offensive player because he's playing against your leverage and all like that. You're going to get hit on some of those. It's important, though, that you have close enough kind of coverage that you get the player down to the ground quickly if you're going to give up receptions like that. Those are kind of forgivable receptions overall. The yak, probably not so much there. This kid's play against the run is just very disturbing, I think, especially when blockers get out to him at the second level. One of the touchdowns runs there, Eckler just runs right past him because Bush just can't get off the block there. If you're going to be an high earning middle linebacker in the NFL, you've got to show up more on the stat sheet, than Devin Bush has been showing up so far. And maybe it is his knee, maybe it's not, whatever. But it is not looking pretty on a game-by-game basis for Devin Bush right now. And don't hand me the old, you don't know what the play call is, Devin Bush Sr. Excuse here.
Yeah, not good for Devin Bush. Austin Eckler, by the way, only the 3rd player since the merger against the Steelers to score 4 touchdowns in a game. He joins Don Beebe and Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor last to do it in 2000. So 4 touchdowns in the NFL. Don't see that too often, but you saw it last night. And again, you do not see it really almost ever against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, look, I mean, Joe Schobert had a huge 4th down stop in that game, right? I mean, that gave you the sense that, wow, this team's actually going to do this thing here. And you know what? Technically, I guess you could count that as a turnover too, can't you? That was a turnover.
If we're counting the turnover on down, that's a good point.
Turnover on down, so that was.
So they were +2 in Talkstat, I guess.
So they, I guess technically they were +2. So you lost a +2 Talkstat game. Boy, how many times this year have they been on the wrong end of the talks like that? They probably set a record for talks losses or beating the talks because they have a couple of games that they've won. They've been on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah, it was not a good night for the advanced numbers last night. You think about the Steelers' offense. I know you posted this. To switch over to them, you posted the successful run rates. They were like 55% last night, but that was not a 55% run success rate feeling type of performance by the Steelers' run game against the Chargers' 32nd ranked run defense that was, oh, by the way, missing their top two interior defensive linemen in Jerry Tillery and Linval Joseph. I think just the overall lack of run game, even when this game was relatively close Sunday night, was just unacceptable.
Looking at that's a good point here. Let's look at some of the run successes this team had. Let's look particularly at the yeses and the down and distances involved with them. A 1st and 10, a 1st and 5, a 1st and 10, a 2nd and 7. That was Ray McLeod. A 2nd and 2, a 2nd and 5, a 2nd and 10. A 2nd and 3, a 3rd and 5, and a 4th and 1 there. So how many 1st and 10s were there? 2 1st and 10 successful runs was it in this game. Now, we talk about successful runs and how it dang sure better be over 50%. It was, but here's now we have to start splitting and drilling down here is, man, their successful run seems to be 3 and 4 yards in a cloud of tire dust.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Isn't that what they put down on that turf and all those tire pebbles or whatnot? But
I think
they're not getting the big runs, and you're seeing these other teams week in and week out bust these bigger type runs, and the Steelers are just not getting those runs.
No, they're not, and so it was not a successful feeling type of running attack last night. Najee Harris, 12 carries, 39 yards. As a team, they averaged just 3.1 yards per carry. It felt like the yards per carry is more indicative of their performance last night than the run success rate, which looked pretty good overall. And again, you had the worst ranked rush defense with the Chargers, missing 2 of their top defensive linemen. You should have run well on this team. I know Pittsburgh had their own injuries with Dotson out, Hassan that were out, going to Hague, but still no excuses in this game, and this team was just really poor in that regard.
And I hate using yards per carry as a stat and as a measure of anything, because I don't think it really tells the full story. But, I mean, when you're talking about a team that has a successful run rate of where you want the successful run rate to be, it's just you're not busting anything on top of it there. You're getting just enough in those situations there. That's the best way, I think, to frame it, that the successful run rate is just enough and nothing more. And then unless you play good defense and are limiting teams on the other side of football, then that's unfortunately not going to be enough. Whereas went into the season saying, well, if this team could successful run rate, 53%, and Ben Roethlisberger not throw the football 40 times a game, the Steelers probably win the game there. Well, not all the time.
Yeah, so overall, the Steelers offense, 37 points. There are 37 points for a season high for the Steelers this season. 37 points usually gets you a victory, but not last night. So I thought Ben overall was really good in this game given the circumstances. Again, there was that really bad underthrow to Claypool, which cost his team points. So that was the biggest negative by far, and a very costly one at that. It was just some missed chances in this game, Dave. I know the red zone offense overall looks decent. They went 4-7 last night, which is okay, good enough. The Chargers went 4-7 as was. I think you pointed out, but missed chances early. I think they started this game 1 of 3, or maybe even 1 and 4, 1 and 3 in the red zone, and so you just didn't capitalize quite enough inside the 20 overall. And even that one red zone drive, or the one red zone conversion, came off that fourth down play that was a bailout DPI after just a really horrible sequence there of jet plays and just ugly looking calls, and they didn't even deserve to find the end zone there. So just overall red zone efficiency did not feel very efficient last night.
You talk about in the offseason, we gotta get this running game better. We gotta make sure we address this running game. And you get into situations like that. What do? You don't run. You don't run the football, right? And why the heck did you even draft Najee Harris in the first round if that's going to be the case there? How many times now have this shovel play, it's become such a staple in this offense, it feels, in key short yardage situations. Obviously, for quite a while, that was Juju's bread and butter, right? And now
his first touchdown was a shovel play, I believe.
Right, and now that he's out, Pat Freiermuth is kind of morphed into that role there, and that's what you want to do in that sequence, is a fade to Claypool and a shovel pass to Freiermuth.
Yeah,
and I know it's results biased, because if the shovel works, then we're not even talking about the shovel call.
Right. I will say I'm okay with Tomlin going for it there, even though it did not work.
I'm okay going for it, yeah.
Touchdowns. Yeah, they needed to score, get in the end zone in a game like that where your defense was going to struggle. I usually, 99% of the time, Dave, I roll my eyes at the fan base who says, I called all the plays last night. I was saying what was happening before it happened.
Right.
But whenever I saw Freiermuth motion and then a line is that wing and no one can – I was alone last night, so no one can verify this. So you just have to trust me on this when I said they're going to run the shovel pass to Freiermuth, and that's what they did. And so they've done that so many times this year. It's very much on tape. And Derwin James, a smart player, was able to figure that one out and shut it down. So it just felt too obvious of a call in that moment.
Can you put any lipstick on the pig?
Or get a different pig?
Right.
Maybe a big situation, maybe a different pig for once.
Motion it. I know there's only so much you can do in that situation, but it's not like the first time we've seen that either, right? So that's where it becomes kind of disturbing. And yes, it's results bias, because once again, if he shovels to Freiermuth and he scores, are we talking about the play?
Yeah, obviously it is results biased, but he tried to be as objective as possible, and I don't think it was a great call overall. The thing that burns me up the most whenever the Steelers get near the goal line, because they talk about, we have these RPOs, and they were stacking the box, so we had to throw the football. Sometimes you got to run on a stacked box. Like, it's the goal line. You're always facing the stacked box. You're always going to run into a stacked box, because that's just the space you don't have for a defense. That's how these things go in the NFL. So you better be able to run on a stacked box, and if you're even in terms of the numbers of your box counts, 0 or you're +1 or something like that, run the football, man. It can't be stacked box as the excuse every single time, because you'll never run in the red zone if you're worried about stacked boxes.
Absolutely. And once again, why do you have the running? Why did you draft him, Najee in the first round if you can't get into situations there and just say, look, 3 downs, here you go, stop them,
Right.
Now, obviously,
right.
Get a little bit creative with maybe what you're calling in there, and I think both of us are not fans of seeing guards pull inside the 5, in very short yardage situations there. But man, that's why you got that kid in the first round. And what'd you think about the Claypool handoff? You could feel that one coming as well too. On that, and Freiermuth got blown up over on the edge. If there's one thing that people won't talk about until after the season, that probably we will, is he's got to get better as a blocker.
Mm-hmm.
And
as an inline, I think he's good in space as an inline blocker.
Right.
He's got to bulk up, get stronger.
Right, he's got to get strong, and that's a common theme, right? But not a lot. You evidently you can't criticize Najee or Pat Freiermuth during the season, because that means you hate them. But
right.
Freiermuth has to get stronger. He's got to become a better inline blocker. There is no comparison with him and Heath right yet in those kind of situations there. It's cute and all like that, the whole Muth thing, and I get it and all, but make no mistake about it, he has got to become a better, and he probably will, but
mm-hmm.
let's call it what it is right now, and sure. He got blown up on that play particular.
Yeah, you were asking me about what I thought of that play. Ask Ben. I think Ben's reaction said it all of him just, looking around like, that's what we're calling? Okay. I mean, let's move on. But I don't think Ben loved those calls. I know after the game he was just saying, we're just frustrated, just can't get in. That's just normal reaction. But I don't think he loved the play calling inside the 5 last night.
Deontay Johnson played very, very, a very good game, I thought, overall. I mean, that guy, starting to make a few catches that, I think one of the things I said, not too terribly long ago was about, man, I want to see Deontay Johnson start making some of those kind of Antonio Brown type catches, Well, that one on his touchdown was kind of that. I mean, that guy's got a tremendous release off of the line and a great route runner and in short spaces. He can really, really get some separation. But that was, all that aside, it was a great route and all, and it was still a tough catch overall. And he made the catch, and he is the Steelers' best receiver by far, and I think he proved that last night. You just wish, man, maybe you needed to go to him 1 or 2 more times maybe in this game. He was that good, and I had another one, another slant and yards after the catch in that situation there as well, too. So I want to make sure we properly take our hat off and hand it to Deontay Johnson for his play in that game.
Yeah, he deserves all the success he's having this year. I watched him at camp, man. First guy on the field, one of the last guys off the field, catching the football every single practice. You saw the report last night with the tennis balls. He apparently bought a tennis ball machine this offseason to work on just hand-eye coordination. His hands have been excellent. I've always said his hands were good. It's just about consistency and focus and just looking the ball in. And that touchdown he had to track that football over his shoulder, make the catch, combat catch, both feet in. Or 1 foot and 1 knee, I should say, but making the catch regardless. The deep ball down the right sideline.
Great pass by Ben there too.
Yeah, on both those plays.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to make sure we, if we don't, people say, well, you're not giving enough credit to Ben. You're not praising Ben enough. So the touchdown to Deontay and that deep pass over on the right side, man, I don't know how you can wedge that football in there any better way than Ben did on that deep one down the side to Deontay, who made a great catch on that.
Yeah, and then the slant that you mentioned. So Johnson's showing it all. Fades, he's showing vertical routes, he's showing yak plays, slant plays. I mean, the whole route tree was on display last night for Deontay Johnson. Yeah, I thought Ben had some great throws. I think was that Ben's best game of the season? I feel like it was, especially given the
it really felt that way. And once again, there were probably 2 balls that you'd like to have back. Could potentially be intercepted there, but it did really feel like that was his best game. And he did try to push the football down the middle of the field past 12 yards. That was a little bit different. His passing chart just looks a little bit different, and threw some really nice balls in there. Obviously we talk about the one that he'd probably like to have back is that deep one to Claypool. I mean, if you throw that out there a little bit further and get a touchdown there, it'd be interesting to see how the complexion of the game changes. I think somewhere along the lines of 8 point something intended air yards, and I think his completed air yard distance was 5.3 or something like that. It was 5.5 completed air yard distance and 8.2 intended air yards. You'd like to see the completed air yards up there, maybe another, closer to 6, but way Ben's numbers have been lately, you take that, especially when you look at some of the throws that he made in that game. So it was good enough, I think, on Ben's part to win the game.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was not in question. Again, there was that Mr. Claypool, but beyond that, I mean, with a run game that was completely inefficient and one they did have to abandon, late in the third quarter, being down 17. So at that point, you really could not run the football. So they really, had the ability to in the first place. So Ben had to be old school Ben. And again, this man is never going to practice again with the way that he plays, apparently, whenever he just comes in. And is there a reason for that? Is that just Ben being Ben, the lore of Ben? Is that because he gets to run the show more and maybe some more no huddle type situations? I don't know, but he plays well in those kind of just moments where you would not expect a quarterback in general to play well.
Yeah, and I think we maybe have a question in the email box about how much did Ben call his own plays, late in those no huddle situations there. Well, I mean, obviously we don't know that for sure, but the thing is too, with Canada being in the up in the box, he's in his ear and all like that as well too. There's no way of knowing, but I wouldn't be surprised if we are to learn come Wednesday, Ben kind of insinuate that it was more him.
That's so true.
Just be. I don't know. Look, whatever it takes to get you down the field and in the end zone, right? But I have a feeling the line of questioning is going to be, were you mostly calling the plays in the fourth quarter there? And I bet it's going to end up getting framed like, and maybe it was, and kudos to him if he was, but it's unfortunate that you have to get in situations like that where, if indeed that is the case, where Ben has to call the plays, and then you're going to go back to then why the heck do the Steelers even need an offensive coordinator? Yada yada yada, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how Ben's going to phrase it in his Ben way. And I think it's probably accurate that he was kind of running the show last night. Again, points coming late in this one. He'd probably say something like, it was tough early. Then we started running some into a huddle and the offense started to click a little bit. And just kind of like casually just smoothing that reference there a little bit. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. But overall for this offense, again, the run game, really disappointing overall against this poorly ranked Chargers run defense. Ben was really good. Deontay, a really strong performance. Claypool's return was certainly welcome. I don't know. I mean, there was, again, missed opportunities to him. This guy cannot be on his 2 feet when he catches a football for some reason. I'm not 100% sure what the issue is there, but it was welcome. It was nice to have Claypool back on the field making some plays last night.
Absolutely, and where I come in on this, especially on seeing him run some of that mesh over the middle there. He did that at Notre Dame and had success. I really think they should consider using him more down in the slot. I really do. I don't know how much we'll see it moving forward there, but I think that guy was kind of made to be a big slot in the NFL.
Yeah, certainly a size, speed, strength mismatch there over the middle of the field. Touchdowns for Eric Ebron, so kudos to him. And I thought the touchdown to Freiermuth was a good call by Canada, one of probably his best red zone call, and some really key blocks by Chukwuma Okorafor and Kendrick Green out in space. So kudos to those guys for getting out there, throwing blocks, and allowing Freiermuth to score.
Absolutely.
And really quiet for James Washington. I mean, James Washington, just 2 catches, 12 yards, 3 targets, just – I know he was number 3 last night with Claypool returning, but just a very, very quiet season here for James Washington and what's almost certainly his final season as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, I bet he can't wait to get out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for sure. So any other thoughts here on the Steelers offense? Again, I mean, 4-7 in the red zone. It looks decent, but you felt like it could have been better in this one, and it certainly felt painful trying to finish some of these drives off for sure. I'm sorry, I've only gotten a couple hours of sleep last night, so I can not talk today at all. But the O-line overall, I guess it was okay. I mean, again, run blocking was disappointing. He had some injuries up front, but still, this offensive line should have done a better job. Joe Hay got in some tough spots against Joey Bosa late in this game, so overall this O-line could have been better.
Early on, it didn't feel so bad. I mean, Kendrick Green had a kind of a rough spots in this game once again there. Okorafor on that right side, I got whooped a couple of times there, but overall, I mean, up until that final drive, what did you kind of think of the pass? Top to bottom, run and pass protection. What did you think about the line play up until really that final drive?
Yeah, well, run blocking certainly felt below average considering the results. It's hard to always tell individual issues watching it live without the all-22 tape. Pass pro did seem pretty good overall. I mean, I think Ben was only sacked once prior to that last drive where he got dumped twice that ended the game. So
he fumbled on one of those too, didn't he? He got it back too,
yeah,
right?
Right. So, I mean, I guess it was, good enough last night before that last drive at least.
I thought it was fine too until that last drive, but That's all it takes, though. Those sacks. I mean, Haig getting blown past, but I don't know if there's a miscommunication. Have to see what happened there. But they knew that they had to pressure Ben Roethlisberger in those situations.
Yeah, and they did. Special teams in this one, maybe not as much to note about. Boss continues to be excellent. No terribly difficult kicks last night, but still a 3-for-3 performance for him. And, of course, the big play there was the block punt, which was a great scheme by Danny Smith. That almost like triple fire inside or fire X blitz there over the middle over the long snapper. It felt like they were attacking, and the broadcast pointed this out. Drew Tranquil, who had missed a week of practice due to being on the reserve COVID list, and he got activated on Saturday, and kind of felt like they were attacking him a bit. Miscommunication between him and the up back, who was not even looking at the middle of the rush. I don't know where his eyes were on that play, and Killebrew gets his second block of the year. I'm not sure the last Steeler to get 2 blocks in one season. I could not find an example of it. It's a little hard to find some of that stuff, but kudos to the execution and the scheme and the finish of that play.
Didn't that come after 2? Wasn't there offsetting penalties on a punt before that?
That is a good question. I am not 100% sure.
What? Wasn't it
that was on the return by McLeod. There was penalties on a Chargers player and Justin Lane, and they had to repunt. So good point.
I wonder if there's something in there that they say, you know what? They're probably going to run this. You know what I'm saying? What kind of makes you call that in that situation? Is it because you have a feeling that they're going to run the same kind of punt scheme on a back-to-back punt? You say we're fairly confident that we're going to get this in this situation. Now let's run this.
It's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I'm not positive. I don't have an answer for you. I want to see what they did on the punt return that was offset.
That's what I'm getting at there. I mean, how different was the rush on that one before that? Those are kind of questions that'd be interesting, and Dave Smith probably ain't gonna tell you the answer on that.
I want to get interviewed this week, so I wouldn't even hear from him.
But it would be interesting to see what goes into why you call things in a certain situation. Why would you call that right after an offsetting penalty on a punt?
Yeah. Now you did have to be aggressive in that moment because the score was what?
Sure.
It was 27-13 Chargers. So you had to be aggressive there overall as special teams. So, I mean, just a general mindset of going after the football. But, yeah, why that call? What did they do the play before on the offsetting punt? I'm not sure. Certainly going to take a look and probably do a film review of it later this week on Steelers Depot.
All right. I mean, that was a big play in the game. And obviously the Cam Hayward getting his hands up and the turnover. I mean, they needed those things because, once again, those are takeaways, and that's something remember Mike Tomlin said right after that game, I think it was right after the Lions game, said, look, we didn't get enough out of the special teams, all those opportunities and all like that. Well, Danny Smith delivered one right on a platter for him.
Yeah, Danny Smith forever. Let it stand. Let it be known, despite all the other issues that come up from time to time. But all right, Dave, any other thoughts here in this game, at least initially? Of course, we'll dive into this one more on Wednesday's show, but overall reaction, defense, just too depleted offense. Certainly can't blame them too much, but still some missed chances for them, and really just upset by the lack of run. I shouldn't say lack of run success, but sort of lack of run success, because this run game should have been better than it was.
My final thought was I was impressed the way they moved the football down the field on that first possession there. But the moment that they didn't convert that into a touchdown on that opening drive, it just felt up until the fourth quarter there, midway in the fourth quarter, they were swimming upstream the whole game. Just trying to do everything they could do, and obviously got down big. I mean, once again, a lot of resilience in there to be down 17 points in that game and took the lead in that. I was shocked at that point there for them to do that. I think that shows a lot about the character of the team. It's just, man, when you're without Watt, two All Pros you're without in that game, and a very experienced cornerback in obviously in Joe Hayden. that's so hard to overcome, man. A lot of people are going to play junior defensive coordinator today and get on the Steelers for playing, so much man and yeah, maybe they should have played more zone in some situations, but I understand why they did. I didn't have any really big issues overall with defensive game plan overall. You didn't have the people to run whatever you wanted to run efficiently.
Sure. No, I think, again, they're in a tough spot. But if you're in man coverage and you're getting beat by quarterback scrambles again and again and again, don't you got to mix it up at some point there? And not even say you have to spy, but at least play zone, at least get eyes on the football to watch Herbert move in the pocket.
Yeah, but you still got to make sure you try to get pressure in those situations too. I just worry about him just getting picked apart more. So.
Right. Well, I mean, the scrambles were beating them. So, right. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you had to change up something. But again, overall, there weren't a lot of major gripes in this game. But to me, that was certainly one you could talk about. But tough spot to be in for Pittsburgh. One other play we should note there from a special team standpoint, how about the Cam Sutton offsides penalty? Because Hopkins missed that field goal wide left. He kicks it again, and he makes it. So I'm trying to think what the score was in that moment. But 3 points in a game like that ultimately proved pretty big.
You don't have it charted yet to have the blitz rate, right?
No, I have not done any charting. It felt higher for sure, which is not a surprise considering the circumstances of Watt, et cetera, being out. But I'm guessing it's going to be a higher percentage than where it's been at least the last 3 weeks, where it's been pretty low.
What'd you get the feel for versus 2-man versus 1-man deep?
It's so hard to tell TV tape. Honestly, I really couldn't even tell you. Did you have a sense for it?
No, I could. I mean, it felt like some 2-man early, and then single high man.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to. As he was too high on the touchdown to Williams, it felt like so. There's that. But all right, Dave, I think that kind of covers the initial reaction from this Chargers game. Overall, AFC North, as you mentioned, top of the show. Rest of the AFC North winners this week, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns. Was not always pretty. The Ravens did so against the Bears without Lamar Jackson. The Browns did so with half a Baker Mayfield in this game, and the Bengals with a win more comfortably so over the Raiders. So Pittsburgh now third in the North at 5-4-1, just slightly over the Browns right now, and still a pretty open AFC, but one that Baltimore's taken a step forward in based on the results last night.
Yeah, you hate, and look, I mean, the Browns could just have easily lost that game to the Lions, and the Ravens had to march down the field there at the end to win that game as well, too, right? But I mean, that's the difference. They won, the Steelers didn't. The Steelers have back-to-back AFC North games, as we mentioned, coming up. They better win them, man. It's hard to imagine this team going even 1-1. I guess. I suppose there's a possibility, but I mean, you better split with the Bengals, right? I mean, I think I had them sweeping the Bengals in my early preseason prediction here, and the Bengals are playing some good football, for sure. And this game, I believe, is in Cincinnati, right? I think our early line's like 4.5 points. The Bengals are favored in this. It's just hard to imagine not winning division games as tough as this schedule is. We said, look, can this team go 4-4 in their final 8 games? Because they're going to have to at least do that, I think, to make the playoffs, right?
Right.
All right, so now they're already lost one of those games. So, I mean, you better start stacking a few more wins here in a hurry here, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to do it in division on top of it.
Yeah, because if you only split one of these next 2 games, then you're 1-2 over that need to be 4-4 span, and so you got to make up a game somewhere, and you can do that. And certainly Pittsburgh getting healthier with hopefully the assumption, and we're assuming right now that Hayden and Minka and Watt and those guys will return. So Pittsburgh's not out of this. Certainly you're going to get reinforcements you did not have last night. So not counting them out, but certainly that margin for error gets thinner and thinner. And again, an extremely competitive North and extremely competitive bunched up AFC.
Zach Prosba writes in regarding Ben in 2022 possibilities. I don't know why, but the game last night gave me the feeling that he is starting to enjoy the guys he is around on offense after an intro period with so many new faces. Do you think it's possible that him getting used to the new guys in the offense leads to a return in 2022 while using draft and free agency to fortify the secondary, depth on D, and reinforcements for offensive line and wide receiver? Thank you and always for all the great content. I mean, you can never say never, I guess, but what do you think? Do you think Ben's showing any signs that this might not be his last season in Pittsburgh?
I mean, I think he's enjoying this whole season. I think because he's cherishing this even more, knowing that this at least could be his last year. Even if his mind is not made up, he certainly has to have that thought in the back of his head right now. But to me, it's an overall question of just how your body feels, and he's taken a lot of hits this season, and I think that's the bigger question. So even if he likes his guys, he probably likes being able to walk a little bit more than that. And so, I mean, we'll see. I'm not going to count it out, but I'm still under the assumption this will be his last season.
I mean, I've said all along that I'll be surprised if this is not his last season. But, I mean, anything's possible. Obviously, his contract 5 days after the Super Bowl voids and all like that. So it would take another I mean, would he be willing to come back and play? I mean, obviously you have some cap money to work with, but the reason you have that cap money is because you don't have Ben on there. And he gave you the $5 million discount. He's playing for essentially $14 million this year. You think he's going to want to come back and play another season at $14 or $15 million?
I think that's the floor. You can't go any lower than that. I mean, I don't know. If he's coming back, though, then maybe the money won't be a big issue because maybe the dude just generally loves playing. So we'll see. But I think it'd be at 14, 15 maybe is what he would come back for.
I'll tell you this, and I've been kind of hitting on this last several weeks here based on what I've kind of seen out of this draft class and Jay Glazier. And, I mean, from where I sit right now, Alex, I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. And even if they do draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, I don't think they're going to be intending on playing that quarterback. So that's where we're at in that. So it's either going to be Mason Rudolph, a veteran quarterback not currently on the roster, or one Ben Roethlisberger. I think I got it surrounded there.
I think so. And I'm going to put the favorite as being a veteran quarterback not on this roster.
All right, let's see if we can get into some more here. You got anything else to talk about the game before we get to the emails here?
No, I think we covered it pretty well initially.
Luis Diaz writes in, "Hi, thanks for all the info. Would you guys consider at this point of the season to part ways with both defensive and offensive coordinators during the offseason? I sure would. I'm kind of tired of Butler's game plans and Canada's red zone calls. Are most of them baffling. Best regards from Mexico City." Look, like it or not, Mike Tomlin's running his defense.
Yeah, and in terms of the defensive game plan, I don't know. It's been worse, I'll tell you that. I've had more gripes with Butler's in this defense's plan and approach much more in the past than I have this season.
I mean, is there a likelihood that this is Butler's last season because his contract's up and just maybe time to give that role to somebody else? Absolutely. Right. Are you really, unless Canada wants to leave to go back to college or something like that? I mean, I understand the frustration with him, but from where I sit right now, and look, if Ben comes back, you think Ben wants yet another offensive coordinator?
Well, it depends how happy he is with Canada. I don't know if he terribly loves working with Canada.
Other than Randy, I guess. I mean, how many coordinators? I guess you had to go back to BA and all like that. But anyway,
but with the coordinators he loved, he loved Fichtner. He still loves. He's like BFFs with Bruce Arians. I mean, yeah.
But here's the thing. once again, I'll be surprised if they. I can see Butler just from the sheer fact maybe his contract's up and maybe he just wants to retire and that kind of thing. I'm less convinced Canada's going anywhere after 2 years.
Yeah, same with Canada, but I will say with Canada, I mean, this guy does not stay in one place too long for whatever reason. So, I mean, I think he'll be back. And I mean, obviously you have gripes and criticisms, but I'm probably less so than what this reader's saying here. But yeah, I think Butler could be gone for the simple fact that obviously his contract's up, and he barely came back this year. So him coming back again, those odds might not be terribly high.
Let's see here from Paul Brown, David Knox. We keep hearing Stephon Tuitt is close to returning. Seems like this has been the case all season. What gives? Will we ever see him on the field? Blah, blah, blah. I feel the Steelers have been very tight-lipped. Doesn't make sense why he's out there. On another note, I think the team fought hard in otherwise almost insurmountable losses. Moral victories don't count in the win-loss column, but you got to be somewhat happy with how they fought. Look, I think they showed a lot of resilience in that game, quite honestly, and I think we said that earlier in the show, but it's still an L. As far as your first part, Paul, I don't know if you missed any podcast along the way here, episodes, but I mean, I don't know what you want, how you want us to speculate on Stephon Tuitt at this point. I mean, that's just what it is at this point. Nobody has any inside information on him whatsoever. So, we don't know what to tell you here. We don't know if it's still physical, if it's mental, if it's both, what the deal is. So until the Steelers put out on a Wednesday that Stephon Tuitt is resuming practicing and having his window open, then I mean it's just a waste of words, really waste of airtime on the podcast.
I'm out of speculation. I mean, we just have to wait and see. We can talk about it and go around in circles more and more and say, will he, won't he? Who knows? Just wait and see on that.
Jeff Berg writes in, did Ben call most of the fourth quarter? This is the topic or the subject line that I saw. Season may be over or maybe there's some hope. Classic Steelers heart attack and frustrating game. Did it seem to y'all that Ben called most of the fourth quarter? If so, what does that say about Canada's play calling? We've already addressed this, Jeff. I know it's going to be easy to frame the narrative right now that the only reason the Steelers moved the football because Ben Roethlisberger called the plays. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I'm sure Ben, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, I would not be surprised if Ben kind of tries to frame it as such. And Canada will let him too. If that's the way Canada will say, look, it wasn't enough. It's on me. All the nonsense that happens on the Thursday with the Canada press conferences. So, I mean, I don't know. This is another one of those that we get every once in a while. We don't know how to answer the question.
Yeah, going to get a big old helping of got to be better with my turkey and mashed potatoes on Thursday from Matt Canada. I mean, obviously, whenever you're running no huddle, typically the quarterback will call those plays and things like that. And a veteran like Ben kind of has autonomy in those moments. So, I mean, that's not maybe unusual, especially whenever, it felt like it was a home game last night. So maybe crowd noise was less of an issue that would have been in a different away stadium. But, yeah, it certainly felt like, Ben getting to kind of run the show and control things is when this offense seems to function, at least pretty well.
He adds in here, I believe not running Najee again at the 5 and in general in the game led to the loss. Well, here's the thing, Jeff, there was a nice successful run rate in that. And that's one thing that I preach a lot of. Run successful early so you can have a chance to run successful late. You hate to start splitting this up, but the runs, they're not getting, season being 3 or 4 yards in the cloud of tire dust, like I said there. It would be nice to see more of these. And look, I don't think anybody should expect the explosive runs out of Najee Harris. But how about some more of these 10, 12, 14-yarders, kind of thing. And people say, well, he can't run because the offensive line. Well, how the heck are the Detroit Lions able to bust these big runs? How are some of these other bottom of the league teams able to bust these big runs, right?
Right, and Najee Harris is as good as any back in terms of churning out those tough yards. And the whole Steelers mantra this year is about being physical, being aggressive, finishing blocks. you got to be able to run in those areas. I think they still can run in those areas, even whenever the run game overall is not having a great night, as was the case last night. So to me, again, I came into this game saying 32nd ranked run defense, Chargers missing Tillery, Chargers missing Joseph, no excuses. I'm not going to make any excuses for this run game and their failures last night.
I mean, like it or not, folks, Najee Harris is not explosive back, and what I get on Twitter on that is, well, wait until he has a better offensive line. What would your response be to, well, wait until he needs a better offensive line?
I mean, at Alabama, he was an explosive back, and he ran behind the best offensive line in college football. So, I mean, that's just not his game, and that's fine. I'm not mad at him for it at all. I think he's a great back. He's having a tremendous season. I'm super happy that he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. But to me, that's, I'm not asking for 40-yard runs last night. I just want to see runs to go longer than 4 yards.
I wrestled with bringing this up in this podcast and asking you this question, but what the heck? I'm going to ask it anyway. That play by Eckler out in space where he broke James Pierre's ankles and then just got past, basically did the same thing to Edmonds over there on that side. Does Najee Harris do that same thing to those two guys?
Not that same thing, but they're different styles of back. I mean, the body type and build of Eckler is different. He's a smaller, shiftier kind of guy.
Does Najee Harris score on that?
I mean, he's capable of it. He's a powerful guy. I don't know if he actually does in those moments or not, but I think he's capable of it, just in probably a different way than Eckler would. Probably more power and strength and the finesse that Eckler showed.
I don't think he does.
Okay, I mean, is that just because he's not shifty enough?
Not that kind of shiftiness,
Yeah, but you're not. I mean, you can't knock him for that. That's not his.
No.
To make those kind of plays.
No, but I did think it goes back to, once again, it would be nice if there was a little bit of thunder and lightning in here. To kind of take the load off it. Najee took a heck of a hit in that game too, and he was aggravated. I think at the point he was told he was going to have to go in and get checked is when he kind of pushed the trainer that was out there on the field there like that. He seemed pretty aggravated. And look, that should be a fine. They missed one in that one. That was a forearm shiver there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. And then the knee getting bent back. This guy's his body. I don't know how this dude's standing, but kudos to him.
Are you a little bit worried with the workload that he's getting? I mean, we talked about. I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, you almost have to do it there, but that just adds to the frustration of not being able to get McFarland.
Right. Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm worried about it. It is a heavy workload, but like you said, what's the alternative? Do you want to win games or not? And if you want to win games, then Harris has to be your guy. That's what you drafted him to do and to be. So that's the plan. You got to execute the plan.
I mean, it'd be nice to be able to get some players out there in space. Oops. I got some audio right there.
Oh, you good?
Yeah, I got it. Let's see. Let's get back to the email machine here and start finishing these up here. A couple in-game emails. These should be different. Halftime email. Hi, David. I'll send this at halftime. Two things I want to point out. One, there's no way this team can stay with Green at center going forward next season. You can't let a third-string defensive tackle drive you back into the quarterback. There is no shame in cutting bait and drafting a real center or signing one in free agency too. We know how many injuries the Steelers have had, but man, why us? It seems the Patriots don't have the issue, and watching them Thursday, they are healthy. What's the secret? Thanks, guys, for your opinion. John D. John, have you watched what's happening with the Baltimore Ravens this season? Right, Alex?
What do you mean by that?
All the injuries they've had.
Yeah, they've been more than any team in football, and they're still 7-3.
John, well, you're not going to get. I think you want some kind of sympathy out of us for the injuries that the Steelers have had, and why us. Look around the league, man. Baltimore Ravens are getting it done. They have been obliterated by injuries this season. So it's not even worth entertaining that part of the question there. Teams go through situations throughout a season where they have some attrition, and that's why you build your rosters deep to try to get past that. I mean, it happens really to every team. Obviously, happens worse to some other teams than others there. Just look at the Ravens is all I got to tell you, John. The first part of it there, Green staying at center. Here we go again.
Yeah, he got walked back. I didn't know they could ice skate out in L.A., but apparently you can. Maybe that snap was early. I feel like that snap was just off on that play. Ben was surprised by it. But, yeah, these aren't – the first thing we talked about when Kendrick Green got drafted, about dealing with power, dealing with the bull rush, and things like that. And so it's been no surprise. I was posting clips of linebackers, Michigan linebackers running this guy back at Illinois. So I'm not shocked by any of this. I said this year's going to be very up and down for Kendrick Green, and I think that's been accurate. It's been extremely volatile and unfortunately probably been more bad than good.
Right.
And Dan Moore's had his struggles too. I don't want to. I think someone made a point that we don't talk about Dan Moore and his play overall enough in this game. Again, it's a tough spot to be in, but Moore has certainly not been. He's been, I would probably say, below average overall this season, just across the board for a baseline tackle.
Yeah, but no, you're not. People are going to start saying, "Well, you need to bench those guys." They're not going to bench those guys, folks.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating it.
And about moving Green to guard, he's going to be your center, I think. I suppose at some point maybe you could do that, but he's still, the weaknesses are still going to show up there, I think.
Yeah, the thing to me is that moving him to guard's not going to solve those problems. If anything, it might make those problems worse. It's a question of, is this guy a viable starter in your lineup or not? That's the question you just have to ask yourself.
All right, I think we've got through all of it there, Alex. We will get into the tape and discuss it even more, what happened in the loss to the Chargers. Boy, look at all this. I wasn't surprised, but, man, Steelers Nation really represented it there in L.A., didn't they?
Yeah, no surprise, like you said, but great to see. By the way, one other quick note here. I should have mentioned this earlier when you asked about it. According to Nick Cortez, Steelers very much in danger of not getting a third-round comp pick for Bud Dupree. He was placed on IR over the weekend. He's going to have to play a lot of snaps and get healthy pretty quickly here for Pittsburgh to get a third. If not, they'll only get a fourth-round comp pick for him next draft.
And now you have Haig back in, probably going to log some snaps.
Oh, that's a good point. What's Haig at for this season? He was at 20% coming into this game. Obviously, these numbers will ebb and flow the rest of the way based on starting or not, but he is now sitting at 34% this year, which takes him out of the comp pick formula. Would not give Pittsburgh that fifth-round pick for filers. So as it sits here today, and again, these numbers will change, he is negatively hurting the comp pick situation for Pittsburgh.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, that's just more bad news, right?
Yeah, now again, that number, if he doesn't play next week, that number will drop back down. So I still think they'll get the comp pick for him, but that's where things stand today.
And pray for Bud Dupree to get healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And he's going to apparently play like 60 snaps a game going forward to try to get Pittsburgh a third-round comp pick instead.
All right, we'll get after this on Wednesday again. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.